Hey everyone, how you doing today? This is your course, your boy, Pastor David B. Foster, and everybody tapped in know that the B is for bless. I'm here with very special guest. Go way back. I'm reveal another one of my multi multi talents and hidden talents that people don't know about. We used to make music together back when I was Barry Gordy, and but she is a phenomenal young lady and a great mother and just amazing singer. When I first heard her sing, it just blew me away. So we're here today with Tara B. Right?
That's correct.
That's good. So how are you?
I'm blessed and highly
It's
favored.
good to see you,
Good to
man.
see
Like,
you.
how long has it really been since? I think since your wedding, right?
Yeah, yeah, it was my
Wow,
wedding. It would have been 8 years ago.
wow,
8 years
wow.
ago.
That's a long time.
Hmm.
So I make sure if I look at my pictures, if I got any of those clothes still left, I got to throw them away.
I
you
think
know,
all of us had to throw the clothes away.
I had to throw any of that stuff
Yeah.
away. Yeah, so no, good. Like I said, 8 years ago, wow, time really flies. Like I said, I did kind of give you a little introduction, but if you were going to introduce yourself to a stranger, how would you introduce yourself? You know.
Oh, well, I am Tara Beatty Barker. Beatty is my maiden name. I am from Chicago, Illinois, and I migrated here. My family is from Memphis, my parents, and then I came here in my early 20s after school, and ended up getting stuck here with the music, and so I've been here ever since then.
Yeah.
Got caught up in the life, marriage,
Yeah.
children, all that stuff, and
Right.
and of course the music captured me as well. So
Right. Right. The time just kind of zoomed
hmm
on by, and now you're here.
yeah,
Yeah. Now you came from. People say now you came from Chicago to Memphis. Now
I did.
you, both two cities with
I did.
bad reputations and good
Hmm.
reputations actually. But Chicago actually is a beautiful city. A lot of people don't know.
Oh
With the
yeah.
river walk and million what's it called, million mile downtown shopping with the shopping area.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
loop.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's actually
right down Lake Michigan.
yeah, like Michigan, beautiful city. It
Hmm.
really is. It doesn't get enough
You can't
good
get
press.
any
Yeah,
any other sky
yeah.
uh, highlight
Skyline,
like
right?
Memphis, unless you're in New York or
Yeah,
Miami or someplace like that. But the skyline of Chicago is breathtaking.
yeah. It is. It really is.
So
Chicago was the first place I saw people like. We were there down, like I said, down there shopping. I think Millionaire Mile or whatever. But I saw people like had real money, like
mm,
one thing I did, maybe it's a stereotype, but I saw all these people walking with these little dogs,
hmm
dogs in their purses, and it was like it was such a shock to me from what I've seen on TV. This was years ago, but on TV because you hear about the negativity and the good times,
hmm
Cabrini Green, and all of that. But for me to put my eyes on Chicago in that way, it was really, it was refreshing.
Oh
It was
yeah.
refreshing.
Well,
It
you
was,
had different. You had your places in Chicago, so
right,
of course, in that particular area, the Loop, you're gonna see that.
right.
The drop tops and the walking, the running with the dogs, and
Yeah,
everybody in that area they walked everywhere.
yeah, they did.
So
Yeah, they did. Yeah,
yeah.
and this had to be when I first went to Chicago. Probably was back in the '90s, probably '97 when I first went there, so like I said, that was mind blowing to me because my travels up until that time had only been relegated to southern cities.
Hmm.
From Memphis to Nashville to Miami, Daytona Beach, Atlanta. Yeah, so you probably figure out what I was doing
Of
in
course.
those days,
Hmm.
just
Of
about the
course.
city that day.
Of
Yeah,
course.
but yeah. So when I went up there to Chicago, it was refreshing. I loved it. Actually, I loved it.
Different vibe. The food,
Yeah,
of
food is
course,
phenomenal. Yeah,
different. And hey, I miss home. It will always be home.
yeah.
But I vowed not to ever move back there.
Right, right.
Honestly, when I left Chicago, I was like one of the lucky ones,
Yeah, that's true.
and
Yeah,
I,
yeah.
of course, when I started with my family
Yeah.
and I knew was never going to have my children grow up like I had to.
Right, right, right.
Yeah, I knew that I was one of the lucky ones
Yeah.
to get out from where I was brought up at. So,
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's real.
count
That's
your
real.
blessings.
Right, right, right. And now Memphis is pretty much the same way now.
Yeah.
But at least your kids are grown,
Yeah, they're grown
Yeah,
now,
grown,
but
grown, definitely.
even though you still can't compare Chicago and Memphis.
Yeah.
To me, it's wannabes here in Memphis.
Yeah.
It's the real deal in Chicago.
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
And that's what you have to deal with. The wannabes here in Memphis.
Yeah.
And up there is the real deal.
Yeah. It's definitely. It's different. It's different to say the least. So yeah, like I said, we met you singing, and like I said, your voice is definitely beautiful. Just blew me away. When was it that you first realized that you really could sing?
Oh wow! I would say when I was a little girl, maybe around the age of 3. My family.
Yeah.
I had 7 uncles.
Okay.
And their wives and my aunt. And, back then, we used to have the house parties.
Oh, yeah.
Well, they did. Where the kids had to go to the back.
Supposed to
We
be
could
saved
never
back.
go
Right.
up front with the adults,
Right.
while they listening to their music and, playing their cards and having their fun.
Right.
But they used to always come and get me.
Okay.
So the children would get mad at me because I will always have the opportunity to go out front. Well, didn't know that's because they would put me on the coffee table,
Yeah.
and give me a hairbrush or something and have me perform.
Wow.
And that's when I would start, singing,
Yeah.
car wash or whatever the hottest song was back then.
I'm sure
and
some Earth, Wind, and Fire. And all
yeah,
that.
and
Yeah.
don't ask me how I knew these songs, and I just then I knew it. I think I was singing before I knew how to read or anything.
Wow.
My uncle, my uncle Joe, he had every album. I think of every artist or every band it was. He just had those milk crates.
Yep.
Full of albums.
I remember, yeah.
And that he would have them in his room. And so that's where I would spend my day. The other kids would be outside playing.
Yeah.
I would be in his room pulling albums out.
Yeah.
Couldn't read them, but I would look at the pictures.
Yep, definitely.
I was Chaka Khan, daughter. And I knew how to put her album on, the stereo, turn it on, and sing every song on her album.
Wow.
And that's when I think I was bitten
Right.
by the bug.
By the bug, huh?
Yeah.
By the music bug. So, like I said, you were into music. He was into music.
Oh, yeah.
Was it family musicians or singers?
Yeah. He sings.
Okay.
My uncle, I have other uncles that sing.
Yeah.
Cousins. I know you guys are familiar with the Hodges.
Yeah.
That play for Al Green. Charles Hodges.
Yeah.
They're my cousins.
Oh, wow. Okay,
So, it runs through our blood. I mean, we have histories of musicians and other singers. And, so at the time I didn't know.
Okay.
I didn't know what type of royalty we had in our family. I didn't find that out till I was 20-something years old. And I was what?
Wow.
Didn't even know my father was a drummer.
Oh, wow.
And also a singer.
Wow.
And so, yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely in your blood.
Oh, yeah. It runs deep.
Right, singing.
It runs deep.
Yeah. So, like I said, you were singing, and like I said, of course, family singers. And so, when did you really say, hey, this is going to be my career, something I do,
Well, 5th grade talent show.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
5th grade talent show.
Yeah.
I was so nervous, stage frightened. And my music teacher at the time, she put me out front, and I was singing a country song.
Okay.
And the name of it was I Believe in Music. Never forget it.
Yeah.
And she told me, she said, hey, I know you can do it. And I was like, I can't.
Yeah.
I could do it in front of her and the students, but not in the cafeteria, which was our auditorium,
back in that,
on the stage.
Right.
No.
Yeah.
She just told me, she said, I need you, when you in front of people, I need you to just stare at one item, either on the wall or a window or one person.
Wow.
And just tune out everybody else.
Right.
And from that day on, that's what I took, and that's what I do.
Wow.
And at that point, I said, okay.
Yeah.
when I got that first standing ovation after singing that country song, I Believe in Music,
Yeah.
I went back home and I was like, Mom, I want to do this forever. I want to be the first Black country,
Singing.
singer.
Yeah.
Didn't know
Yeah.
there was others before
Of course,
me.
yeah,
But,
but no, yeah.
I didn't see any that looked like me
No,
around that
yeah.
time.
Yeah, very few in that genre.
So,
Yeah,
but
definitely.
I love country music, and I was like, okay.
Yeah.
And at the time, we were living in Rantoul, Illinois, Champaign, Illinois.
Oh, you Champagne, yeah.
And my yard was cornfield. So
Wow.
that's all. My best friend at the time, she was, white. And,
Yeah.
so we listened to country music. And
Wow.
I want to sing country music.
Yeah.
That didn't happen. But that was when I was like, okay.
Wow.
Let
That's
me
good.
keep going. Let me keep entering the competitions.
Yeah.
So when we moved back to Chicago,
Okay.
that's when I started entering in more talent shows and
Okay.
also being a part of big church choirs, community.
Really quiet, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and just singing and just loving the music.
Just loving the music, no matter what genre the music. I'll sing it.
Yeah.
I didn't care the genres. I just wanted to sing.
That's good. Yeah. No, I remember you saying something about that. Like once we had when we first got together about it, and you like, Dave, I want to do a country album. Mm-hmm. And I heard it, but I didn't like take it seriously. I was like,
Oh, I was serious.
Yeah, you were serious. I see that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. That's phenomenal though, because it's big now. Of course, country music. They got what's the guy named Kane? Mm-hmm. Yeah, Kane. He's there, and Shaboya.
There's so many now.
The guy
I
with
can't
the
even.
dreads.
I don't
he had
even
a
know
big
their
hit
names,
song.
but I just know that
Yeah.
there's so many female artists out. Even Beyonce.
Yeah,
she
she
wanted
just
to try to
did
take
one.
over because
Right.
that is a genre of music that we've been singing it.
Yeah, definitely.
It's nothing but blues.
Yeah.
With a different twist on the music.
One.
But
Yeah, it's definitely storytelling. That's
yeah.
it. Same movie. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, we actually had watched Voice last night. Tanya and I, and a gentleman was on there, and he ended up singing country music, and black guy. Mm-hmm. Yep, and so now that's what's up. That's what's up. I love that. So like I said, you've been singing, professionally pretty much your whole life, and just singing, and now like I said, they said they always say that you should do what you would do for free. You know what I'm saying? And music, being that passion for you. Has music played a part as like, because they say music can be a soundtrack to your life. Has music been like a soundtrack for you?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, in your life?
See, now if you would come to me and say, Tara, let's do another album, and
Right.
you want to become, Barry Gordon again.
Yeah.
I now can write. At the time I wasn't a writer. You remember I would tell you
I was right.
I couldn't write,
Right.
and I had a writer's block because, I didn't think I had anything to write about.
Yeah,
I
but
did.
Now,
But now,
yeah. You got a story to tell.
oh, I have so much to write about.
Right,
I have
right.
about 5 songs in my
Yeah.
that's ready to go right now, and it's about
You get me excited now.
Yeah.
I might have to revisit this. For real.
about 5 songs, and it's about not only just relationships. It's about myself, finding myself. It's about my growth and spiritually.
Right.
The point when I realized that I thought I knew God, but I didn't know Him like I know Him now. And then I realized, no, I didn't. I didn't know Him.
Yeah. So that's what's supposed to talk about it, because, of course, myself being a pastor, I always find myself in this catch-22. You preach to people and you want the best for them. You want them to live their best life. You want them to really know God. But but then sometimes we get put in a category to where we're like bullying people, or we're badgering people with this message. So I'm always like conflicting between that. But to hear you say that from that seat, it's refreshing to me. So let's talk about that a little bit, where you're saying that you thought you knew God, but you found out that you really didn't know Him like you need to. Talk about that. What was their journey like? What was that aha moment that you was like?
Well, I've been blessed
Right.
financially.
Right.
With material things
Right.
within the last, I would say, 30 years.
Okay.
You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
I been there, done that.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
Definitely.
know, type of situation,
Right.
and I would say within the last 4 or 5 years throughout the pandemic,
Yeah.
once I started with, I would say, with COVID, changed my life.
Okay. Okay.
Didn't know that it was gonna, do what it did.
Right.
I know that it changed a lot of people's lives because, first of all, they didn't make healthy people,
Yeah. That's true. Yeah.
and all they were doing was trying to breathe and live.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I caught COVID from singing, and somebody used my mic.
Oh wow. Wow.
And when they used my mic, I was singing, and the next day, 2 days later, I ended up contracting COVID. Was in the hospital for 3 months, 3.5 months with double pneumonia,
Wow.
and almost didn't make it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And so once they approved me for the medication,
Yeah.
that they was issuing out medication to certain,
Yeah. They were.
patients
They
that
were,
was sick
yeah.
enough to get it.
That's true. That's
You
true.
know, I
That's true.
was one of those
Wow.
sick patients, and shout out to Baptist Collierville. They saved my life.
Yeah.
But yeah, they sent me home. They said, we're going to send you home. You're still sick though, but we need room for sicker people.
Yeah.
We're going to send you home with hospice care. Still on oxygen. They sent me home. At this point, now granted, in the hospital, we couldn't have any visitors.
Right.
I refused to talk to people because I was done.
Yeah.
That devil was there.
Yeah.
I wouldn't open the blinds.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't eat. I wouldn't talk to the doctors or nurses, and I would get messages that my family was calling, saying answer the phone, and all I can think of was my children at my memorial service on that front row.
Wow. Yeah, because that's one of the things with COVID. We had my wife and I we had got COVID as well. It was really bad. We just chose to stay at home. But one of the worst part of COVID and the physical part is bad now. Every day my goal was to be able to walk to the shower. It may sound trivial to some people who didn't have it, but the toll it took on your physical body was right. And I thought I got better one time, so I jumped in the truck. I was like, I'm gonna go over my mom's house. It was the physical exertion from turning the wheel. I was like, wow, this is amazing. But the mental aspect of it was what really took a lot of people out. And like I said, not being able to see your family or see others. And I hear you saying that
That's what did it.
It weighed on you, And so did you come to a point to say, hey, I'm going to just accept the consequences, or did you just say, I'm giving up?
I gave up.
You gave up? Okay.
Oh, I gave up.
Yeah.
That devil had took over.
Wow.
And all I can hear him saying was look at you. Look at you. Why you gonna eat that? When they bring the food in, why you want to eat that?
Wow.
You're done.
Wow.
Every time I opened my eyes, all I saw was my children. It was like me hovering over my own service, looking at them. I couldn't get anything else off my mind. That's all I saw. And then at that point, I was like, okay.
Yeah.
I had accepted it.
So you accepted,
Yeah.
And so then you accepted it. You had given up. What brought you out of that?
Well, one day, my pride, my stubborn pride, I didn't want to wait on them to take me to the restroom. So I wanted to get up because I always have to have an assistant. So I wanted to get up.
Yeah.
And of course, when I got up, I fell. And I hit my head.
Yeah.
I really didn't hit my head. I just fell. When I fell, everything went dark. I couldn't breathe.
Wow.
And I was trying to call for help.
Wow.
And all I know is that my eyes was shutting slowly. And I saw some legs come through, and I grabbed, and I said, I don't want to die.
Wow.
And I heard him say, you're not dying today.
Wow.
And I woke up. I don't know. They said I was only out for maybe a couple of hours.
Wow.
When I woke up, they had me back in the bed. My blinds were open. It was like rays of sunshine coming through. I thought I was gone, I'm like, oh.
You see the light, huh?
This is heaven, okay. Well, why I gotta be still in the hospital,
Right,
you know.
right.
But no, they were like, "Oh, Miss Barker, you know,
Yeah.
you back
Yeah.
with us." I'm like, "Did I leave?" You
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
He was like, "No, but where were you going?" I was like, "To the restroom. They told you to call us. We would help you." And I was
Wow.
like, "No." And they was like, "Do you remember anything?" I said, "I remember grabbing somebody's leg." He said, "Yeah, it was my nurse."
Okay.
He said, "That was me."
Wow.
He said, "You said you didn't want to die, and I told you not today, not on my watch."
Yeah. Wow. Wow.
He says, "Well, so what we gonna do since
Yeah.
you don't want to live? We gonna make you live." He says, "So these PTs, the physical therapists, have been coming to your door trying to get you to breathe.
Right.
We gonna force you to because we hear you a singer." And I'm like, "How do you know I'm a singer?"
Right.
They said, "Because people been calling up to the hospital.
Wow.
People been calling up to the hospital asking about you.
Wow.
We assuming there are people that follow you.
Yeah.
They've been asking. I don't know how they found out I was in a Baptist Collierville.
Yeah,
You know, I'm like,
I
supposed to be private, you know. But no, they said people been calling.
Yeah.
You know, wants to know if you were okay.
Wow.
And and they said one of the employees said they noticed me or something from singing. And I was like, yeah. And I'm laying up there with the oxygen and everything on me.
Yeah.
They said those same muscles that you use to sing is what's going to save your life.
Wow.
So we need you to sing.
Wow.
Sing his praises. This is what my male nurses tell me. Sing his praises. You still believe, don't it? Yes, I believe.
Wow.
That is what saved my life. That's when I realized that I thought I knew him, but right then and there, he sent an angel in there disguised as a nurse
Wow. That is
to show me that even in the midst of my, non-believing anymore,
Well,
giving up,
your low point. Yeah.
my lowest point in my life,
Right. Wow.
that he sent a nurse in there and I just grabbed his ankle and said, I don't want to die. No, you're not going to die today, not on my watch.
Wow. Yeah.
A week later, I was at home.
Wow.
I was walking. They had me walking them halls, breathing, had me singing up and down them halls. And, it wasn't nice though, but it was enough for me to breathe. They had me to get to a certain point.
Breathing, and little tube thing with the bottom. Yeah, I see that. Yeah.
But the double pneumonia. And then after that, long story short, my pillows would get wet and I would tell my husband, I was like, why is my pillow wet? Am I sweating in my sleep or something?
Yeah.
He's like, no. He said, why you don't have your oxygen prongs up your nose? And I'm like, because it burns. Well, I was leaking brain fluid.
What?
From my nose.
Wow.
Don't know how that happened.
Yeah.
All I know is that there was a hole created in my cranial area and started leaking brain fluid.
Wow, really?
And that is what started my whole... I said COVID had something to do with it, but the doctors and my neurologists and my surgeons said, no. COVID had nothing to do with it. And I'm like, well, I've never had this issue before.
Right.
And all of a sudden.
Yeah, just after this, you started leaking brain. So you went from COVID to now this new journey and situation where you have to get over and you leaking brain fluid. So so they were running tests and doing different things on you.
They ran one test.
What?
They they sent me to an ENT, ear, nose, and throat specialist.
Yeah.
He said, can you give me a sample? I said, how much you want? He said, excuse me?
Yeah.
I said, I could fill up that whole cup. He said, no, ma'am. I leaned over and it just started running out.
What?
And he was like, oh my gosh.
Wow.
Now, I'm still singing.
Wow.
I'm still trying to work. This is right after COVID. I got bills,
definitely.
I'm still trying to sing. It's Christmas time coming up. I got Christmas gift to buy. I've already been out for 3 months. And this is what I'm thinking. Well, it made it worse, I guess, because, I'm a heart singer. I'm a powerful singer.
Yeah.
And all I know is that immediately he was like, I have to refer you to a rhino, a surgeon that specializes in this area.
Yeah, right.
It's only 3 of them in the country. One just happened to be here in Memphis.
Wow.
And they scheduled me immediately for surgery. So within 2 months, I was in surgery. And they fixed that first, they call it a spinal fluid repair.
Okay.
My mind is gone blank right now.
No, that's fine. That's fine.
A
Yeah.
cerebral fluid
Okay.
leak. So it's
Cerebral
a,
fluid.
yeah,
Okay. Okay. Okay.
cerebral fluid leak repair.
Wow.
And that was in January of 22.
22. Okay.
22,
Yeah.
turned around and had to have another one because another one happened.
Really?
So I've had 3.
Wow.
It just kept happening to the point where they wanted to, put devices on me. And so this past December, they decided I went ahead and agreed and let them put shunts, not a shunt, but a stent in my head
Okay. Okay.
to help with the flow of the
The
fluids.
fluid, the cerebral fluid.
Because how they explained to me is that it was like hypertension in the skull. So just like a balloon getting full,
Yeah.
and, any balloon, if it get full with like water,
Yeah.
it's going to find the weakest spot and then it's going to create a
Come
hole.
out. Okay. Okay.
And so that's what my skull was doing.
Wow. Wow.
And so it was creating a hole up in this area, leaking from my nose.
Directly through your nose. Wow.
Because this is the weakest part of the cranial area.
It's right there.
Because of the eyes, the holes for your nose and
Okay.
your
I see what you're
eyes.
saying. Right. And it just was come down. So through that, like, did you meet with any specialists or
7 neurologists
7 neurologists?
I'm seeing
Wow.
currently.
And has anybody pinpointed anything, or they just guesstimating?
As of today, they're still trying to, fix it.
Okay.
I'm consulting with other doctors. Next week, I go to another neurologist, a new one,
Okay.
trying to figure out.
Yeah.
It's like a mystery
Yeah.
because they're like, okay, you
Yeah.
haven't had any head injuries, no head trauma, hadn't had any accident.
Right.
We don't understand.
And it started happening.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So as far as that, outside of that, like, are there any physical, like, ailments, or do you pain or anything like that that's associated with that? Wow.
Headaches,
Yeah.
unbelievable. I can feel my head
Like it.
cracking.
Yeah. Wow.
And that's how I had to explain it to them before they took me serious. At first, they was misdiagnosing me with having migraines
Okay.
and giving me migraine. No, I literally feels like somebody is chipping away
Wow.
at my skull. That's how I had to explain to them.
To them. Right.
So in the midst of all these, the last couple of years,
Yeah.
the different doctors they had me going to, the last surgery I had where he closed the hole in my cranial area, he moved to Ohio
Wow.
at my surgeon. And he said, now if this happens again, he said, I've never had to do this more than once on a patient,
Yeah.
let alone 3 times. He said, if this happens again, I need you to go to Vanderbilt in Nashville.
Okay.
So that may be my next move is to go there.
Yeah.
But I just thought maybe the neurologist here could figure me
Figure
out.
it out, right? It may be divine. We'll see how it works out. But that's amazing. I'm blown away, But your strength is definitely something to be, applauded.
When I tell you,
and I know you don't want, there's nothing anybody would wish on you. But looking at you, you look like tired of me. It's just, but that's a credit to your strength. Just you going through that, and so also, like I said, you develop this relationship with God, right? A deeper relationship. And talk about that a little bit more on how, like I said before, you were aware of God, thought you had this relationship, but now you're saying, you really have this relationship. Talk about that a little more. How that.
well, I can say now my prayers are even different because I used to be selfish with my prayers.
Wow.
I would be selfish and just pray for me. I catch myself praying for everybody else. I'm last.
Wow.
Now, so that's another thing.
Yeah.
And I have no problem
Yeah.
with sharing my testimony with others.
Right.
And I'm doing this right now because I had so many people asking me, why haven't I been out performing?
Right.
Where have I been? Because
Yeah.
I've I've been singing with bands, at sometimes 6 and 7 bands at a time.
Right.
And so I just stopped within the last year and a half.
Right.
And I would have people texting, calling, and I had to change my number and, you know, DMing me, asking me what happened, you know, and I wasn't that I was afraid. I was just private. You know, I didn't want to share it until I ran across a few ministers and other musicians, and it was like, Tara, you need to share your story. You don't know who else you can help. And so when I do go out and sing, every time I touch that mic, I share. I don't care what genre of music I'm singing, where I'm at, I am going to let them know. You are you're listening to someone who just this past December had 2 stents put in her head. I should not be singing at all.
Wow, I know. Singing, seeing, walking, none of that.
And at that point, I go there. I go there because I give him praise wherever and whenever.
Wow, that's amazing.
So,
that's fine. That's
my
amazing.
prayers are different. My meditation now is different. The fact that I want to help others in Lowe's. I was in Lowe's right before Christmas, right before I went into my surgery. My mother and I was just, no, it was after. Because that was part of my my healing.
Okay.
And I had to walk around to get my blood flowing. And so I was walking around Lowe's, which was one of my favorite stores, you know. And one of the cashiers, I thought it was one of my regular ladies. And so I was so happy. I had my mask on, and I was like, "It's so good to see you." And I said, "My surgery was successful, and you know this." And the lady was like, "Who are you?"
Wow.
And I was like, "Did I know you?" She was like, "No," little white lady, you know, the cute. She's like, "No, you don't." And I was like, "Oh my God, I thought you was. I'm so sorry." And she said, "Oh, I know who you thought I was. She's on lunch." And I was like, "I'm so sorry." She said, "But no, to keep telling me about your surgery." She said, "You said you was what?" And I went to go into, you know, what happened, and she's pulled down her mask, and she's had like Kleenex stuffed up in her nose. She is 74 years old. Check out. She works the self checkout.
Right.
She said, "I've been leaking for like 6 months, some liquid from my nose. And I don't know what it is. I went to the doctor and they told me, oh, don't worry about it." I just dropped to my knees. And I'm like, "Oh, you worry about that." I said, "That's exactly, it has no taste, no smell. It's just like, I said, you please. I gave her my surgeon's information. I said, "Please call them."
Wow.
She was shaking like a leaf. She said, "Oh my God, you think so?" So to this day, I still communicate with this lady.
Wow.
You know, checking on her. Want to make sure she followed up, telling her, "Please don't be scared."
Right.
She finally replied back and she said, "I'm definitely afraid that they're not going to treat me because of my age. I don't think they can. I don't think I want to go through what you've been through. I can't do that."
Right.
I said, "But you never know.
Yeah.
At least go to them."
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it was definitely meant for you to meet her.
And I asked her, I said, "Did you have any head trauma?" She said, "Yes, I was in an accident."
Wow.
I said, "Yeah, you need to go."
Wow.
The same symptoms. I said, "That's exactly what I would be. I would be walking around with Kleenex stuffed up in my nose."
Wow. That's amazing, you know, because, you know, people are, you know, we judgmental naturally. You know, how
Very
we see
much.
people with a mask or we see people with tissue up their nose and we may be like, what the, you know, why would they come out like never knowing, you know, you would never know the depths of what you experienced or what you went through. And so I like, you know, just me thinking, I would think that. I was like, why is this lady walking around with tissue on her nose? You know, she should have stayed, you know, but you never know. It's just God showing me different things on how, you know, you never know what people are experiencing and not to be judgmental and to be more empathetic and, sympathetic, you know, really, but of what people are going through. But two things I want to say, like, definitely meant for you to go to Lowe's and meet that.
It was.
And to meet that lady, what we would say is a mistake, but really, I believe God divinely led you there so that she can, number one, get over that fear, and number two, get help for, you know, her condition and what she's going through. And I also want to say how God, from a very little girl, young age, He used your gift to be a gift. Because not only, your gift, for years, your gift bless others, bless me. People hear you sing and, and be, um, you know, just, cause people to be happy and euphoric and, you know, you take people to a place with your, singing. But then God used your gift, like that nurse said, hey, the same muscles you use to sing is going to save your life. And you're standing here or sitting here today as a living testimony to how God, used you. And think about that, like perhaps you singing all those years trained your muscles to be strong enough, quote unquote, to help you through that condition. 'Cause like you said, others didn't make it. A lot of people didn't make it. But God, He knew what He was doing. And I just see that, how His divine purpose is works out in your life. And this, I'm encouraged by your testimony now. Like it's good for the preacher to get encouraged sometimes too.
Wow.
We encourage people. I'm really encouraged, and like I got so much I want to say. We'll talk about it off camera, but I'm encouraged. I really am. I really am. And I think that everything that's happened in your life, you know, it's never by accident.
Well, I already know this
Yeah.
right here. You know how we always question him?
Definitely.
Why me?
Yeah. Well, I mean, why now? This and that.
So
Yeah.
go back to the question that you asked me.
Yeah.
I know that I know him better now because now I don't ask that no more.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
it's like, why not?
Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
Why
Yeah.
not me?
Right. Right. Right.
Why not me? I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
he knew
Yeah.
what my heart is. He knew what my love is
Yeah.
for my gift
Yeah.
and for others. He
Definitely.
knew that what I was going to do with it
Yeah.
wasn't going to be selfish
Yeah. Definitely. Definitely.
and that I was going to go and spread his word and
Yeah.
give my testimony
Yeah.
and just forevermore
Mm-hmm.
share how he has definitely
Yeah. Bless you. Yeah.
blessed me and
Kept
he can
you.
do the same for you,
Yeah.
you
That's
know.
good. That's
Even
good.
in the midst of it all,
Right.
even I ain't even completely healed yet.
Yeah,
Even though
yeah.
I am,
Yeah. No. We know. Yeah.
I
Yeah. Yeah.
am.
Claim
But
it,
the
Jesus.
doctors, they don't know what they're talking about. The main doctor
Yeah.
saying they just haven't discovered yet.
Yeah. Yeah. No.
You know,
we
but
know. We great then.
I won't stop
Yeah. No. We won't.
no more,
Got more to do.
and
Yeah.
I'm gonna keep on.
Yeah.
You know,
When I heard your testimony when we first started talking about it, I immediately thought about Charlie Wilson. And how God just gave him that second chance.
yeah,
And one thing he always does, every concert, he go give God that glory. And I see you doing it. You doing the same thing.
every
Yeah.
time.
And like you said, it's and his music is different. It's like there's a different passion in his music now. He's always been a great musician, singer, performer and all that. But it's like it's more heartfelt. The things that he does, and I see that now with you coming to pass. There's really some things that God's going to do in your life, and it all makes sense now.
Yeah,
It's making more and more sense to me daily. And when you hit me up a couple weeks ago, and you were like, I'm ready. There was no hesitation in my spirit about it. You know what I'm saying? I was like, well, no, let's wait. This. I was like, no, let's do it. I knew it needed to be done, and people needed to hear, your testimony and how you, overcame and just went through the situation. So, I'm gonna ask you this, and then we'll get out of here. If you had to name your album, what would it be?
oh,
Like, what comes to mind?
trust,
Trust. Wow. Yeah.
trust.
Trust. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Just trust in Him.
Trust is so wide. I mean,
Yeah.
with anything, life, faith,
Right.
everything, trust.
Yeah. Wow. Well. Yeah. Yeah. So you said that trust. Like that's one word, but they say it's so wide. and you've grown in your relationship with God, and what does that mean to you even more now? Like trust, because we can have a trust in people, in things, but what does that mean to have like that trust in God now?
I was a warrior.
Yeah.
Worrier. I would worry myself
Wow.
to the point where I'm sick, worrying about things that I can't control.
Right. Right. Right.
People,
Yeah.
situations,
Right. Right.
opportunities,
Yeah.
just worry about the weather, the dog, next door neighbor, just worrying about, I was a worrier,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
trust,
Yeah. Trust. That's good.
Praying for something and then always praying for it. No, if I trust his word, I'm going to pray for it at one time and leave it alone.
Wow. That's
Because I'm
good.
trust that he going to take care of
Yeah,
it.
you can do it. Wow.
Me keep asking for it means that I ain't trusting
That's
that he
good.
going to do
That's
what
good.
he said he going to do.
Yeah. Yeah. That's it.
That
That's
trust.
It. That trust. It's something serious.
See, that's different. Before all of this, that's
Yeah.
what I used to do.
Yeah.
Now, my
Yeah.
prayers, like I said, my prayers are totally different.
Yeah.
Every day, my prayer is different.
Yeah. 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 This praying.
My
is
prayer is not even for me to be healed anymore. He already done heard that. He already know.
That's good. That's
My
good.
prayer is now working on myself. I look in the mirror now. I love you, Tara.
Yeah. Wow.
'Cause I hadn't heard that in a while.
Wow. Wow.
Other from my children or whatever. But when the last time you told yourself you love you?
Wow. That's good. That's good. Yeah. That's good. Yeah.
When I told myself that, and I couldn't even look at myself in the mirror really,
Yeah.
because I was tuning up the crowd like, wow,
Wow.
I needed to hear that.
Yeah. That's good.
Girl, I love you.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Girl, even in the midst of all of this, girl, you still the bomb. You still the bomb.
Yeah. Yeah.
Encouraging myself.
Wow. Yeah. That's good.
Because for the last couple of years, it's been like, wow, Tara, you're up and down my weight, and everything has changed, and
Yeah, the health issues and this and that, and yeah, no, that's phenomenal. I mean, the Bible talks about David. When he was going through it, the Bible said he had to encourage himself, and so that's good. And I don't know if you knew what you said when you first said that when you said you were a warrior. I heard you say you were a warrior. And because God has made you to be a warrior now. So you're not a warrior anymore.
not no more.
Yeah, you're a warrior, and that's phenomenal. And just me knowing some of your story and some of the things you've been through, I'm glad to hear that. And I, our relationship with you, but
Yeah.
I'm glad to hear that, and that makes me smile. But if you were going to just lead the people with one thing about, like I said, because we are faced with a lot of things in this life, and they're continuing, media, like from TV to social media, bombards us with messages that I say are filled with fear, from politics to health to finances, to weather, world crisis. What would you say to people who, we're faced with these real things, but at the end of the day, like I said, what would you say to people on how to really just, like I said, trust God in a way where you can allow Him to just handle those things?
Well, you have to get to know yourself.
Yeah.
If you don't know yourself and don't know what position you are in with yourself, how can you go and talk to God? Once you find yourself, then you'll be able to talk directly to Him. He already knows. He's just waiting on us.
Yeah, yeah.
He's just waiting on us. I mean, this world that we're living in right now is in such turmoil right now, and in need of so much prayer and help.
Yeah.
So what I say is stay in His Word.
Yeah.
Continue to do right by others.
Yeah.
If you haven't found Him yet, please do. Also, don't ignore yourself, your health.
Yeah. Yeah.
This past year, we've lost so many, just in my industry, in the music industry, singers and musicians. I can't not even begin to tell you how many musicians and singers that have passed on or who have gotten sick, such as myself. You know, I'm included.
Yeah.
You know, guys, we got to take care of ourselves.
Yeah,
you know,
sure,
we
yeah.
out here and we're giving our all, we're singing, giving our all, but we're not taking care of self.
That's good.
You know, so if we're going to go out here and work and do this thing, you know, and keep going,
Yeah.
you know, we got to take care of number uno,
Yeah.
and that's self.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
That's
know,
good.
I'm 52 years old.
Yeah.
I should not be going through what I'm going through right now.
Yeah.
You know, had I known this was going to happen 10 years ago, you know, I was supposed to be retired, getting ready to travel the world right now. That was my plan.
Yeah.
You know, but God laughs at our plans. You know that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So, but it's all for us to start eating right,
Yes.
to start taking care of yourself.
Yeah.
Any little warnings that you get,
Yeah.
that alarm is just not just say, okay, just ignore it. No, that's an alarm for a reason. You know your body.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you get a headache or a little ache or whatever, don't ignore it. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
Go and get it checked out.
That's good. That's good.
You know, and love on your folks, your family. You know, we only here a short time, you know.
Yeah. Definitely.
It's too short.
Yeah.
You know, go ahead and just live it like it's your last. And that's my vow right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I'm living this thing like it's my last,
Yeah.
you know. No, that's why I say I'm not worrying no more. I can't.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not going to let you,
Yeah.
nobody else stress me out to where they used to.
Yeah.
Where I'm pulling my hair out or crying. No. It's too much.
Yeah.
So go ahead and take care of yourself.
Good. That's good to hear. But look, definitely, we appreciate you coming on the show. You know, just sharing your testimony. It's powerful.
No, I thank you.
Yeah.
I thank you because this has been weighing heavy on me.
Wow.
This is the first time that I've spoke
Like
publicly about my situation, and when I saw you and I saw what you were doing, I knew this is where I wanted to come and share with my brother on your platform. So, and I've been trying to figure out a way to do this, and I didn't want to do it on Facebook Live or someplace like that.
Right.
So this was the best place.
Wow.
So I thank you.
Wow. Okay. Wow. I'm honored. I'm even more honored now. That means a lot. It means a lot that you chose us. But look, you know, like I said again, thanks for coming on, and you know, we go definitely talk, put some things together. I got a few ideas. But look, make sure you like, share, subscribe, and most of all, like Tara was saying, look, take care of yourself. Love on your people, and look, don't hold any out or unforgiveness in your heart. Forgive others, and just, you know, go ahead and, you know, live your life the way God intended. And just remember, look, there's nothing like living the good life. We'll see y'all soon.